You've probably heard of Shawn Michaels before. He is one of the best pro wrestlers of all time, who has offered us a collection of legendary matches.
Here we go!
He is an artist in the ring, the definition of charisma. His influence has been tremendous in this industry, but he would have also been involved in many scandals, although sometimes they are rumors that should not be considered as absolute truths. It's a pleasure to meet you on the Wrestling Paradise to discover together the biggest controversies about Shawn Michaels.
Can you feel it?
I can feel it.
All right.
Are you ready to be shocked when you learn how he almost got killed by some Marines? Do you want to know more about the awful behavior he allegedly had with several colleagues, including the Rock and Oomaga? Do you want to discover how his fate was mixed up with the one of Sunny, the diva who became a criminal? And are you curious to learn how he was involved in one of the most famous scandals in pro wrestling history? You are at the right place, because in our video we will discover together the most outrageous incidents in which the Heartbreak Kid would have been involved.
Chops that we see delivered by Shawn Michaels.
You are on the Wrestling Paradise, the most controversial stories about Shawn Michaels. Let's go. There is a behavior that would have characterized Shawn Michaels for a long time, and you will see that it's not very glorious. Apparently, for several years, he didn't want to put other wrestlers over. Perhaps out of a desire to protect his spot or out of jealousy, he would have shown on different occasions that he was ready to do anything not to help colleagues. It's as if he doesn't want to let other people win. For example, in September 1997, he had a European title match against British Bulldog at the one-night-only pay-per-view.
HBK is on his way.
You should know that the show was taking place in the UK. The British Bulldog was therefore at home, in front of a crowd that was rooting for him. We could learn that the British wrestler said that he was dedicating the match to his sister, who was dying of an illness. Apparently, he was the one who was supposed to win that day, but at the 11th hour, Michaels refused to lose. In the end, he will defeat the British Bulldog by submission in front of his sick sister, his wife, and all his fans. This is an even more questionable action, because Shawn will intentionally lose the European title to give it to his colleague Triple H a few weeks later. A few months before, he was supposed to face Bret Hart at WrestleMania for the title, in a rematch of the 1996 main event. The year before, Michaels had won in an Iron Man match lasting more than an hour. When Bret was exhausted in the ring after Shawn had won, the latter had even yelled to the referee to get the Canadian out of his ring. But when it came to doing the same thing for his rival a year later, he would have preferred to vacate his WWE title a few weeks before WrestleMania and disappear, because he would have lost his smile, as he said. He supposedly had to retire because of physical problems. However, a few months later, he will be back, fitter than ever. In the end, we tend to think that he didn't want to put Bret Hart over at the showcase of the Immortals. With that in mind, he would have been ready to disrupt all the company's plans for the most important show of the year, at a time when the Federation was suffering from the World Championship Wrestling competition. Finally, in 1998, he apparently didn't want to lose his title at WrestleMania to the new star Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's why The Undertaker will be in gorilla position throughout the match, ready to come and destroy Michaels if he didn't do what was expected of him. Fortunately, later in his career, having also moved away from drugs, he will put his colleagues over much more often.
I admire your guts for giving me a live mic on Raw is War in the mood that I'm in.
Shawn Michaels didn't only have problems with his co-workers. Even in his interactions with fans, you will see that he hasn't always been very pleasant, to say the least. Over the years, he would have been involved in different incidents. One day, HBK entered a bar that apparently belonged to the mother of a fan. The latter then approached the wrestler and told him, "Hey, you're Shawn Michaels, you're my favorite pro wrestler." At that moment, how did Michaels react in your opinion? At first, he answers the fan that it is not his real name but his wrestling name. Right after, when he asked him for an autograph, the Heartbreak Kid told him that he had to give him $10 to grant him this honor. But unfortunately, the fan had no money on him. Did he expect his idol to make him pay for a simple signature? In any case, seeing that, Shawn would have yelled at him to leave him alone. We imagine that after this story, Mr. WrestleMania was probably no longer his favorite pro wrestler. It's October 13th, 1995, and Shawn Michaels is going to be involved in another controversial incident. That day, with his colleagues, the British Bulldog and the future X-Pac, he had a show in Binghamton, New York. Then they went to their motel in Syracuse before deciding to go out in the city to have fun. They wanted to go to Club 37, where they quickly started drinking alcohol. From there, everything will become blurred for the Heartbreak Kid. Apparently, he started hitting on a girl, without knowing that she was the former girlfriend of a US Army Marine. Before the situation escalated, the club's security guard intervened and took the wrestlers outside. While he was drunk, Shawn will be put in the passenger seat of a car. But the Marines were not finished with him. According to the police report, Michaels got away with it by having his face hit on the bumper. He will have 2 black eyes, a laceration on his right eyelid, and blood coming out of both of his ears. When the officials find out about what happened, they won't be happy. You should know that a wrestler should never lose in a fight against a civilian, or else he was being fired. Indeed, it totally discredited the business and made the wrestlers seem like ordinary men. All this incident will not prevent him from being pushed tremendously by the WWE. This will make a lot of noise in the pro wrestling world. Today, The Rock is perhaps the most famous actor on the planet. After exploding in the WWE, he managed to become a star in Hollywood. But did you know that because of Shawn Michaels, this success almost never happened? Indeed, it all started in the late 90s. At that time, after debuting in 1996, The Rock was improving, becoming a monster of charisma, and was about to become one of the next big names. But this upcoming ascent was not to Shawn Michaels' liking. At the same time, the showstopper was one of the company's huge stars. So we imagine that he felt threatened by this new wrestler who was arriving, taller than him, more muscular, extremely talented on the microphone. According to rumors, HBK would have done everything he could with Triple H to put an end to the push of the future People's Champion.
Santa the swing, rock bottom.
They would even have tried to convince Vince McMahon, the big boss at that time, to take a very specific decision. Apparently, they wanted the Canadian Bret Hart to beat The Rock for the Intercontinental title. This is of course not trivial, hang in there. In general, the Federation gives this belt to a wrestler to test him. It is traditionally a way to see if he would be ready for the main title. Fortunately for Rocky, Vince McMahon but also Bret Hart refused this pitch. Moreover, the stratagem of HBK and Triple H was even more vicious because it enabled Bret Hart to be removed from the WWE title picture at the same time. When we hear that, we think that at one time, Shawn Michaels seemed to prevent anyone from shining more than him. Maybe all this was multiplied tenfold by all the drugs that he was taking at that time, as he has already confessed. Another occasion on which Shawn Michaels would have shown his bad temper is at the Tribute to the Troops show in 2007. In this event, set up to entertain the military in Iraq, he was teaming up with his best friend Triple H to face Mr. Kennedy and Oomaga in the main event. The amazing thing about this story is that it takes place at a time when HBK had changed. For several years, he said he was a new man who had found religion. However, on this day in 2007, you will see that we could have believed otherwise. There was a backstage incident between HBK and the Samoan Bulldozer, who was perhaps the most intimidating monster of the company at that time.
Chops that we see delivered by Shawn Michaels. I mean, you know, that's a vintage Ric Flair.
This whole situation has a really surprising origin. The problem would have come from the pants that Oomaga was wearing, which were green and black. In Michaels' eyes, it looked way too much like the ring outfit of D-Generation X, the clan he was forming with Triple H at that time. He would have been so angry about this detail that he would have even demanded that Oomaga changed his pants at the 11th hour. However, we can ask ourselves a question. Why was it so bad that a wrestler had a pants that looks a little too much like his faction in a show that wasn't even that important? In any case, Oomaga was able to count on his friend Randy Orton. He came to calm Shawn Michaels down and defend his Samoan colleague. In the end, the situation settled down. Having a nervous breakdown for this reason seems really incredible from a calm and new man. The Heartbreak Kid was also involved in one of pro wrestling's most famous scandals. You may have even heard of it before. The Curtain Call. This incident took place at Madison Square Garden in May 1996. At that show, Shawn Michaels had a cage match against Kevin Nash. After the match, Triple H and Scott Hall joined them, the 4 men forming the controversial group of the Clique. They hugged each other. You should know that Nash and Hall were about to leave for the WCW competitor. This evening was like a goodbye for them. But there was a big problem. It was a time when the spectators still believed a lot in what is called kayfabe, this illusion that is created in pro wrestling. To put it simply, the fans believed that everything they saw on the screen was real, and the 4 men were not supposed to be friends in this illusion. We will say that the spectators were not well aware yet that everything was scripted and staged. But when they hugged at the end of that match, they were breaking all that. This act, in which Shawn Michaels was very involved, harmed the wrestling business. A large number of people discovered the secrets of the magician. We can consider that Mr. WrestleMania was one of the first to destroy this suspension of disbelief that is so important in sports entertainment. But since he was a champion, he will not be punished for this incident. The wrestler Dax Harwood has already told a story about HBK that doesn't do him any favors. But hang on, because in reality, it could reveal a personality trait that he would have had for a long time. You should already know that Harwood has already worked in the WWE on the Revival team. This situation took place in January 2018 during the 25th anniversary of Raw. It's the Federation's Monday night show, and it was supposed to be a celebration. But for Dax, it will probably remain a bad memory. On this special evening, he shared a special moment with Shawn Michaels. The DX team and Revival were going to have a TV segment together in a few minutes. Backstage, Harwood was therefore reunited with Mr. WrestleMania, with whom he worked when he was at the WWE Performance Center. He opened up to Michaels by telling him that he had torn his bicep and that his wife helped him get out of a very dark phase of his life. While HBK had shown support for him, everything changed when his DX colleagues arrived. From the moment Triple H, X-Pac, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn and Scott Hall were there, his behavior changed. According to Harwood, HBK started making fun of him almost immediately after his friends showed up. By learning this, we could say to ourselves that Michaels' behavior over the years may come from a need to give a certain image to his colleagues.
Here we go!
We're going to end up with a big controversy in Shawn Michaels' career. It could be summarized in a single word: Sunny. She's this former WWE diva in the 90s that a lot of fans were in love with at the time. But over the years, she had a massive decline that led her to jail. As far as Shawn Michaels is concerned, Sunny's case is divided into two controversies. First of all, you have to know that he had an affair with Sunny. In itself, there was obviously nothing wrong, except that she had been in a relationship with wrestler Chris Candido for many years. Candido was even on site, backstage, when Michaels was doing what he had to do with her. It even happened before that he thanked Chris face to face. In a way, we can consider that he was taunting his colleague without any respect. But he had such influence behind the scenes that Michaels could ruin Candido's career if he complained about his behavior. The second controversy concerns a comment that Shawn made in a promo when he was feuding with Bret Hart. He allowed himself to say that the Canadian was enjoying sunny days. Basically, he was implying that Bret was sleeping with Sunny, except that he was a married man, and that was totally wrong according to him. This created problems in his marriage. However, it should be noted that Hart has already admitted he was unfaithful on multiple occasions. But in this specific case, HBK would have invented this story from scratch, which got him a lot of hatred from the Canadian. We can say that at one time in his life, Shawn Michaels really had no limits. And that was it for the biggest controversies Shawn Michaels has been involved in. For the record, we could have even talked about the infamous Montreal Screwjob, where Bret Hart was screwed in front of the whole world. But Michaels wasn't the only man involved. The fact is that we must nevertheless take all this information with a distance. Everything is based on stories from people who can hate HBK, demonize him. These are not necessarily indisputable facts. And it's also important to point out that he's done a lot of good things in his career. In addition to being an extraordinary and charismatic performer, with many unforgettable matches, he helped many colleagues to improve. He had even created a school. He has also admitted his wrongs on numerous occasions, which we can only respect. I have a debate for you. In your opinion, what is the best match of Shawn Michaels' career? Come and tell us what you think. It will be interesting to exchange our points of view in the comments. We can say that the Heartbreak Kid is unique. I hope you had a good time watching this video, and I invite you to stay on the Paradise of Wrestling to look at some other ones. See you right away.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold